outside. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boards in order to make this 10-pin. The opposite would be true for the 7-pin. So we really have a lot more room to make this spare than we would originally believe.
Thanks very much, Steve. I think that's a very important tip, so we can go out and practice for the 5-pin, the 10-pin, the 7-pin, or whatever spare we have up there. We have plenty of room to make it.
Sure do.
Another common spare is a 3-6-10, which is the 2-4-7 for left-handers. The best strategy for making this spare is to shoot cross lane between the 3 and 6, or the 2 and 4 if you are a left-hander. Watch again. The ball is angled across the lane, taking out the 3, 6, and 10 pins. With most spares, you'll want to use a straight shot into your target area. An exception, however, is a difficult bucket. The 2-4-5-8 for right-handers, the 3-5-6-9 for left-handers. The simplest strategy is to use your strike shot, but adjust your starting point a few boards. Right for right-handers, left for left-handers. This should allow you to angle the ball into the 2-5 or the 3-5 for a left-hander. With sufficient angle to carry all 4 pins, too light a shot on this spare is likely to leave the back pin standing.
From a woman's standpoint, spare shooting is very critical. A man can get away with missing a spare or 2 per game because he has a tendency to throw more strikes. He has more power to do so. A woman, on the other hand, has to increase her average by shooting spares. So it's very important for her to learn how to pick up all her spares.
Let your ball be your guide. Watch the spares that you leave because they will tell you the adjustments you need to make to throw strikes. For example, if you're leaving a lot of 10 pins, you want to move slightly to the right on the approach. Most of the time, that will remedy the problem. And conversely, if you're leaving a lot of 4 pins, try moving a little left to the approach. You'll find that you'll have a tendency to kick the 4-pin out.
So spares are certainly the most important aspect of bowling as you're learning how to bowl. Later on, as you try to get to be over 180, 190 average bowler, then it's time to start really concentrating on the strikes. But until you get to that level, spares are the key ingredient to becoming as good as you can.
If you're really serious about becoming a better bowler, you're going to have to practice without worrying about your score. For example, going for those strikes in a game won't help you practice your spares. If you're really serious about becoming a better bowler, you're going to have to practice without worrying about your score.
You might want to try Steve Wunderlich's practice strategy of shooting the 10-pin first and then using your strike shot on the remaining pins. This little exercise will help you develop the accuracy you need for shooting spares.
One of the best ways to practice making spares is that when you go in to do open play or practice, shoot your first ball at a spare that you're having difficulty with. If you've been having a difficult time with the 10-pin, throw your first ball at the 10-pin and then throw your strike ball. That way you'll get 2 shots every frame, you'll get more for your money, and after 2 or 3 games of doing that, you'll be very comfortable the next time you leave a 10-pin.
Probably the easiest way to practice, and I think we've lost the art of this a little bit because there's so much emphasis on throwing nothing but strikes. I see more and more people just pushing the reset button when they leave their spares. For the average bowler who doesn't have time to bowl 20 games a day, and you have maybe 2 or 3 games to practice during the day or maybe 2 or 3 times a week, the goal is to get the most out of your practice. And a real easy drill would be shoot your spares on your first ball. Shoot your corner pins, the 7 or the 10 pin, or shoot the 3-6-10 spare or the 2-4-5 spare on your first ball, and then come back and shoot what's left. We used to play a game called low ball, and where the object is to hit 1 or 2 pins every ball. And this way, we became very sharp, and we got a lot of practice in a small amount of time.
I think when I go to practice, I have a tendency to practice a lot of spares. I want to see my ball reaction towards my spares. I'll also practice for repetition, timing, making sure I do the same thing every time. This is really something that amateurs can do as well. Practice the spares and practice their timing.
Well, practice is the most important part of bowling as far as improving goes. And the element that has worked the best for me over the years is to for sure not keep score. Keeping score is a distraction because you're worried about how many pins you're knocking down instead of improving some aspect of your game. So if I could give everybody one piece of advice, it would be don't keep score when you practice.
Every time you go into a practice session, try to identify one thing you need to work on. Your approach, your arm swing, your release. You may not knock down a lot of pins when you're practicing, but you'll see a big difference when it counts.
Taking care of your bowling balls is very important, and the worst thing you can do is leave them in your trunk during extreme heat or cold. Plastic does not like either extreme, and all bowling balls have plastic materials in them, so it's not a good idea to leave them in your trunk. Another reason not to leave them in your trunk is that they get cold, then they will sweat when you bring them inside, and you will have trouble releasing them consistently until they are brought up to room temperature.
As far as cleaning your bowling ball, never use any solvents. The safest way to clean your ball today is regular alcohol. Alcohol in a towel right before you bowl league, clean all the dirt off, and away you go.
My husband is constantly telling me, get the bowling balls out of the garage. This is something that I really shouldn't do. I should bring them all in the house, keep them warm, take good care of them, keep them clean, because like any other sporting equipment, it can damage your equipment when it hits those sub-zero temperatures outside.
One of the great things about bowling is that it's not a very expensive sport to get into. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't take good care of your equipment. Here are a few tips. Remember that extreme heat or cold is very hard on your bowling ball. So don't leave it in your car trunk during summer or winter months. Make sure you keep the sole of your sliding shoe clean so your slide will be consistent shot after shot. Have the appropriate accessories available when you go show up to bowl. A clean towel, skin patch to protect your hand, bowler's tape to adjust your thumb hole, and a rosin bag to keep your hands dry. Finally, don't be afraid to try a wrist device or a glove. There are many good ones on the market, and they have helped many people improve their game. When you bowl for a big championship, you usually play in front of a nice, quiet gallery, just like in a golf match. Concentrating on your shot comes a little easier, but most times at the bowling center, you're going to deal with a lot of distraction. People on the other lanes, your fellow league bowlers, the general noise level of a busy center. Still, you should work hard to develop the ability to concentrate for the few seconds it takes to set up and make your delivery.